You see, I told you, 12.5% more net profit in your pocket if you just change this one goddamn number. This is the number that every business should be focused on, and none of y'all are doing it. In this video, we're going to be discussing the only 6 letters that you need to know to be successful in business. So what are these letters? Okay, so C, A, C, and L, T, V. Simply put, CAC stands for customer acquisition cost, and LTV stands for lifetime value. To make this super simple, how much does it cost you to get a client, and what is that client worth to you? So in this video, this is exactly what we're going to be discussing. I'm going to teach you how to work these out and how to manipulate these numbers to your advantage, okay? Because really depending on the type of business that you've got will vastly change basically what your CAC and to LTV ratio basically is. Let's break down CAC first, okay? So CAC is, like I said, customer acquisition cost. And this is essentially how much does it cost to get a customer? Now, this just changes wildly depending on how you acquire customers, right? So you could say, you could go to like a referral, okay? Which is essentially 0, but scalable is also 0, okay? Really simple. Like referrals are awesome, best customers. It's essentially word of mouth at scale, awesome, okay? You might have something like cold email or cold outbound, let's say. I'll just put outbeat. And the costs of this are low. So let's just put $1 sign. And there is scale. So the scale is also there. Put another $1. And this is obviously very just dependent on the type of business you run. So if you run a B2C business, this doesn't really work because you can't, especially in Europe with GDPR, you can't do cold outbound to a customer, right? Because they haven't opted in for your marketing services or anything like that. But for biz to business, this works very well. And I teach a lot of this, so like cold email, cold LinkedIn, outbound DMs. So if you're B2C, you have to focus on content and you have to focus on ads, right? And that's the next one. So we've got ads, which is the most expensive because you got to know what you're doing, but also has the most scale, okay? So the nice thing about ads is when you scale ads look like that in the scale. If this was like a chart, they're just very linear with how you can make a company grow. You basically, I want to put X dollars in and I want to get X dollars out, okay? So these are like, you know, a few different methods here, but I actually want to show you how do we work it out, okay? Cost of advertising is basically all you need to know. When I run cold outbound, I know, let's say I spend, I'm going to give you some real numbers. I spend $8,000 per year on cold outbound for my B2B consulting firm, right? So this is for a service-based company. So you work that out and we're just gonna round number it. It's roughly what, 666 or something like that per month I spend on cold outbound. If I spend that much, how many months does it take me or how many customers do I get per month? And that will give me my customer acquisition cost, okay? With my last consulting firm, we would get about 10 clients per year because we had very limited scale from this 8,000. So we have 8,000 and we'll get 10 clients. So simple numbers, 8,000 divided by 10, okay? It would cost me about $800 to get a single client. And with this specific business I'm talking about, my previous consulting firm that I sold, we were very limited because we were very, very, very niche, okay? Sadly, with cold outbound, we didn't actually have much upward trajectory from this to keep scaling, okay? So this was about where we maxed that out. It was about $800 to get a client, okay? Now, each of these clients was worth, to us, about $20,000, okay? So you figure that ROI out, it's over a 20x, okay? The number's off the top of my head, but it's probably what, a 23x. You behind your laptop can do the maths for me, but roughly that's about it. So for every dollar we'd put in, we'd get about $23 back. And that is because we had a really good lifetime value on a customer, and this is what the acquisition cost is. Now, I want to dive into, because the customer acquisition cost is simple. It's essentially how much is it costing you and like what, and that just means the medium of advertising, right? The only other thing you can potentially bake into this, depending on how you want to do it, is also the cost of sales. So what I mean by that is, let's say you've got a sales guy. How much does it cost to acquire a customer? So we're going to say it was 8,000 for the cold email and we had 10 clients, which would be 800 per client. But let's now say we also had a 10% commission, okay, on top of that. And let's just say our package was 20K, okay? So our commission for this would be 2,000. So now our cost to acquire that, which is the lead generation, so the advertising marketing, plus the cost of the salesperson to close this deal, is now 2,800, okay? So 2,800 to get 20,000. And then that ROI is, you know, I'm gonna guess it's somewhere like that. I'm just literally going off my gut feeling here, but this is how we work out customer acquisition costs. If you're doing all the sales, it's just the cost of advertising. And if it's just, whether it's cold outbound, whether it's Facebook ads, Google ads, it doesn't matter. How much do you have to put in to get a single person, okay? And then you can build this out over a month, a quarter, whatever you fancy. And these are my actual numbers from not last year before, of a outbound campaign that I did for my consulting firm, okay? Now, if we have a sales guy on top, pretty normal is 10% commission on a deal. Okay, so 2K for that. So our total CAC for this, okay, so with the sales guys, 2,800, right? So now let's go into lifetime value. And then I'm gonna teach you, because this is, lifetime value is more complicated than people realize, because there's a few nuances to it that people don't really talk about. Inside of lifetime value, there is a few key elements, okay? This, simply put, right, is how much does an average customer pay you? If you only had one client, that is technically your lifetime value, but really you want this over a span of a bunch of clients. Now, this is important because depending on what you sell, depends on what this looks like, okay? So lifetime value isn't like a true metric because it doesn't take into account the cost of fulfillment, okay? So if we go one layer deeper than this, which is where I want to start, we have lifetime gross profit, okay? Now, a bit like with CAC, lifetime gross profit is essentially how much a customer is worth to you minus the cost of fulfilling for that customer. Let's break this down. Let's say, for example, we've got lifetime value, and we're going to say, for the sake of argument, it's 10,000. We might say lifetime gross profit of this person or this offer is 6K, okay? So this means our cost is 4K. Okay, so the value of this customer to us is $10,000. The actual gross profit to our business is 6,000 because the cost for them to get this result, or to give us this value, is 4,000. So the ratio we really want to know is actually how much gross profit do they give us after everything is paid for, okay? And then we have to do the ratio between this and the customer acquisition cost. And that's basically how we get to our kind of, well, there are gross profit margins technically, our lifetime gross profit margins. And then we do, you know, taxes and et cetera, and you get down to your net margins, okay? Let's say, for example, I'm gonna do that offer. I'm gonna take you back to the offer that we just discussed. So the lifetime value of a customer to us was actually about 20K, okay? Now, we were doing the fulfillment, so technically the lifetime gross profit was also 20K because we were actually the people doing it. Now, there is actually someone in the place of doing that, okay? And they get paid about 10 to 15%. It depends on the deal, but they're getting 10 to 15% of this. So to make these numbers easy, we're gonna say they get 5K, which means our cost here is 5K. Okay, so it means we get about 15K, right? In total is our lifetime gross profit, okay, of this customer. Depending on what type of business you've got, so I talk a lot about obviously AI consulting firms and service-based businesses. These revenue models look very different depending on your business, but I'm just going to assume, make stuff a lot easier for this content. We're going to assume you're going after a service-based business. Maybe you do want to start an AI consulting firm. First link in the description if you do, because this is much more similar, nigh on identical. Now, let's talk about some ratios. Okay, so we've got a 15K lifetime gross profit, okay, which equates to, just to avoid any confusion here, it roughly equates to, we have a 75% lifetime gross profit margin on a customer. Now, the more this goes up, right, the better, because it goes up at an exponential rate, okay? Because if you increase this from say 15K to 16K, right? It doesn't jump 1%. In this case, I think it would jump 5%, right? Basically, the more you can cut your costs here to increase this, your profit margin just exponentially grows, okay? It doesn't grow linearly, it grows exponentially, because this is the main bottleneck with how much money you're actually putting in your pocket, okay? So the more we can get this to go down, the more money is going to go into your pocket, okay? I'm gonna use the examples that I did before. So we're gonna say our CAC was 2,800, okay, on this 20K offer. Our lifetime gross profit was 15K. So our LTV to CAC ratio is 15,000 to 2,800, okay? That is our current CAC to LTGP ratio. So if we just make this 3,000 for round numbers and simplicity of maths in my head, we would essentially have a 5-to-1 ratio on lifetime gross profit to CAC. In this range, you're golden, right? In business, you want it to be like a bare minimum of 3-to-1. This is like the absolute bog standard. Like if you have less than this, it just becomes very, very, very challenging to scale. If you can get this to go up, okay? Anything north of 80%, you are just gonna print ungodly amounts of cash, okay? Because the amount it's costing you to get a customer and the amount it's costing you to fulfill, there is such a large disparity there that even if your CAC starts increasing, you just have so much wiggle room to play, okay? When you're looking at your business, right, whether you're looking to start one or whether you already have one, I want you to look at, okay, what does it cost us to acquire a customer? And break that down. What's your marketing and sales cost? Just do it like that for now. What's your combination of marketing and sales? And then what's your lifetime gross profit? So whatever you sell them and whatever that customer is worth to them over a lifetime. So you might want to do this over a fixed time. So you might say 12 months, right? People do it over different time horizons, depending on how much data you have. So you could do 12 months, 24 months, 36 months, whatever. But let's just say, what's a customer worth to you in the first 12 months, okay? Let's say again, we'd say in 20K, it's cost us nearly $3,000 to get them as a customer. We've got a 5-to-1 ratio, okay? So for every dollar we're putting in, we are now getting $5 back out, okay? So the question is, how many times would you put $1 into that machine? Let me tell you, as many goddamn times as possible, okay? Another way to basically look at this cost to get your lifetime gross profit to go up is this. We said here, to do this 10K or 15K here, it was costing us 5K, okay? For that customer support rep to basically deal with this client to fulfill on the product. The question is how many customers could that specific person actually serve? So in our case, you've got any given consultant, right? How many projects can they take on, right, that are productized? So let's say AA audits or AA consulting, or you've got a fixed engagement or whatever that service is. How many of those could an individual take on at any one given time when the costs are fixed? I want to just break this down as well, because I think this is important. This is how you get your lifetime gross profit to just keep going up and up and up and up. Let's say you've got a salary of somebody who works, who's say 120K for our numbers. We get them 12 clients a year or 24 clients a year, so it costs 5K delivery. 24 clients, that would equate to 5K per client, okay? That's how much it's costing us. Now, here's the other thing. That doesn't mean that's actually taken all their bandwidth. We might just have a bottleneck in our customer acquisition. So we might be going, okay, we've got a 120K salary, which is fixed, right? Then we are giving them 24 clients a year, which is why it works out for us to be 5K a client. What is the capacity of this person? Well, you could be like, no, the capacity is over double that. We could give them, twice as many. Let's say, they could be dealing with, 48 clients a year. Well, now all of a sudden, you have a 2.5K, right, cost to deliver. So rather than 5, it's now 2.5K. So this no longer is true. This would now be 17.5K. So you've just gone from making 15,000 per client to 17,500 per client because your fixed costs have stayed the same, okay? So that's how you need to look at it. It's like, what are these fixed costs of delivery, right, for the value that you get from the customer? And then how can we scale those in a manner which just puts more money in our pocket? That's how we're going to do this. So every point in the business, and I can speak from doing this myself, we could take on at our like mental capacity, we could do about 40 clients at once per consultant. We were doing, and I'll just do it here, we were doing 40 times about 20K. Is that about 800,000? Okay. And that was per quarter. So that was every 3 months, each consultant to us, in my regards for my business, right, was worth about 800K, okay? So each consultant to us, we could basically load up with $3.6 million of revenue per year. When we started, and when we were scaling and, you know, when we were getting going, this wasn't what it looked. We had the same number of consultants, so we might have had like 1 or 2 at the time, but each consultant might have only been bringing us in 200K a year. And they were costing us 120. So we're making 80. But we just figured out that, hey, that same consultant can actually bring us in 3 million a year with the right systems and processes and operational, you know, back end. So they've gone from making 200 to 3.6. Our costs were the same. So that's why this stuff is mega important. Seems like a massive maths lesson today, but I really hope you enjoyed this video. This is how I break down any business. So any business I've helped, I've worked with over 500 companies at this point. These are the 2 most important numbers I look at. How much does it cost them to acquire a client? What is that client worth to them? And then what is it worth to them minus the cost of delivery? And that gives us the ability to understand where the actual bottlenecks are in the business. Because sometimes people think the bottlenecks is you need to get customer acquisition costs down, which if you're running Facebook ads, you might just not be able to get it down that much further. And they're not looking at how do we get our cost of fulfillment down? How do we increase our lifetime gross profit? You know, what are the inefficiencies we can make in the back end so customers are not only worth more to us, but it costs us less to deliver for them, okay? And in this world of AI, it has never been easier to increase your lifetime gross profit per customer because AI can reduce these costs down massively because a single individual within a firm now, within any company, can be worth 10 times what they used to be, whether you were in customer service, administration, it makes no difference whatsoever. Like we are just seeing a just superhuman talent now coming out where people that have, you know, donkey's years of experience in a certain niche are now using AI and they've just got way more leverage on the time. So whether that's speaking to you directly or your company or people within it, or you want to start a business, these are the most important. 6 letters, 7 if you do lifetime gross profit, all right? So I hope you enjoyed this video. Drop a subscribe button down below. If you're interested in starting your own AI consulting business, which I think is the best opportunity in the world, especially for non-technical people, but it's for everybody, whether you have industry experience or whether you're new to business. It's about going in and identifying inefficiencies that AI can solve. First link in the description if you are a business owner and you would like us to come in and do an AI transformation, so an audit and implementations for your business. Second link in the description and we'll help you do that. All right, I'll see you in the next one.